kills on the board now for Sentinels, make it 48-49, 1 kill away. Sentinels from taking home game number 2.
Here we go, the last one. It's in the fridge. One of the most wild comebacks in competitive Halo history. Ball time, but Snakebite, Lethal both go down. Roll 2 does find one to trade it out, but he's got a lot of work to do up here in red. He finds one. Boobadoobaa's gonna run away with the ball. Oh my, Royal 2, welcome back.
Trying to perk the ammo or something.
Oh.
Shut him down with his snipe. You know what? King Nick is the one with his snipe, so maybe he'll shut down FaZe.
Oh my!
Instead, that was such a oh my God! What a triple, big brain play.
40 seconds left as well, so if they stand off, this could be potentially an overtime situation.
This will not end in 30 seconds if there is not a kill. Ryan Noob wants to make the play of the game. Spot struck. No! What are you doing?
Collapse then, 43-42. Optic take the lead. EUnited get a trade. It's going to be a tied game at 17 seconds to go. But Lucid swoops in and gets the 44.
He's a lunatic and he's out of there. Lucid gets the kill, gets out. 8 seconds remain. And now EUnited all of a sudden, with their backs against the wall, they have to get a kill, tied it up. Now 44-44. We have overtime. 38 seconds. 3 kills on both teams. I love that by Ryan. Drops the sword right to him. Doesn't even make him come get it. Optic Gaming are now trapped.
They know that Nick can be lurking around any corner. He's going for the big play with the grapple, but he fails the grapple. Has to back off.
Trippy drops up, and he drops down, and oh my God, Nick overextends, goes down, and now the sword's in hand. Trippy finds one, and Optic Gaming, do it.
Optic, you gotta go, and you gotta go now.
This push needs to count. 12 seconds on that rocket launcher, but do they even have that much time?
Eco picks up 2. 85 points now. Eco! 3 kills for him. Oddball in the hands of C9. And surely this is the moment they've been waiting for. It's been online dominance. It's been LAN dominance. It's back to back for C9. Your HCS NA regional champions.
The wait is nearly over. Can Cloud9 pull off the three-peat? Today we're going to be discussing that question and much more. We've got the storylines, the roster changes and all of your teams to watch. You're watching the HCS Kansas City pre-show. Hello and welcome to the HCS Kansas City pre-show. My name's Proto, aka Sam, and it's my job to get you primed and ready for the action ahead. This weekend the top teams from around the world will be facing off for bragging rights, their hands on the trophy, and their share of the $250,000 prize pool. Now despite their dominance in competitive Halo Infinite so far, Cloud9 dropped a record number of maps so far at HCS Anaheim, even shockingly being pushed to a Game 5 by Fnatic. The HCS is far from a one-horse race, as other teams slowly begin to get to Cloud9's level. Here's your teams to watch going into HCS Kansas City.
It sounds very simple, but Cloud9 are just very good players. They are all so consistent, and there is very little weakness that they show to other teams. And when other teams are looking at strategy and they're looking at trying how to beat Cloud9, when there isn't that weakness, when there isn't that weak link, where do you go? How do you expose a team that is playing that well? And the team shot that we see from Cloud9 is also amazing.
What makes Cloud9 so good is just their ability to use everything at the game's disposal to their advantage. Look back at Halo 5. What worked for that Splice roster so well was their understanding of the game, their usage of the power weapons, the Spartan abilities in the right moments. And then here in Halo Infinite, I refer back to a discussion I had with Mikun about this very topic too, is that Cloud9 are just masters of using all of the weapons on the map. They learned very quickly that a lot of guns are very useful in certain situations, and that's why they're winning.
What makes Cloud9 such an unstoppable force is a question that everyone's asking right at the moment in the Halo Championship Series. Understandable, 2 back-to-back LAN wins, and it looks like nobody is really close to challenging them in that kind of environment. And for me, it's all about teamwork, and a lot of it comes down to Eco. Eco sees the game from the map top downwards. Eco has this uncanny ability as an in-game leader to see what is happening, not only to himself, but every single member of his team and also every single member of the opposition at any point. From there, they just make great play calls based off of that information. I think eco really is the key for them.
At a very core level, Cloud9 are just very consistent, and there's 4 players who can always do everything you need in a game of Halo Infinite.
Penguin is a player that obviously all eyes were going to be on, right? Going, onto that Cloud9 team, replacing Shotzzy, which is one of the most difficult players to replace in all of FPS esports, not just Halo. There's one thing you can rely on with Penguin: when there's an important 1v1 to be won, Penguin will hit the shots to win that. And it comes down to things that are just as simple as that.
So I mean this with no disrespect to Penguin, it's kind of impossible to replace a player like Shotzzy. You're really not going to see his skill set in many players out there right now. But I think what this Cloud9 roster has done, which if you refer back to Halo 5, this was actually the same Team Liquid team in 2017 with Renegade in place of Rain. They have that chemistry, they know how to work with each other, and I think they found an opportunity how to switch out Shotzzy with Penguin's playstyle. And Penguin's always been a great player. Back in Halo 5, he was probably the best Slayer without a win. He just kind of wasn't on the right team, but now it's proven that it works.
Replacing someone like Shotzzy like for like is almost impossible. I don't think that Penguin would even try and fit that role. So he had to try and bring something that was a little bit different. And I think the consistency that he has shown and what he actually offers to the team is very different, but it does work.
Sometimes it's not about, the flashy play, the highlight play, so to speak. It's the one that keeps your team with players on the map. It's the one that gets you the first pick in a team fight. And Penguin is just so good at that. And he just goes about it without, any fuss, any qualms. And he just has this wonderful ability to communicate in a calm way that matches what Stella and Eco do. And I think that really does have that chemistry sort of come to the fore when they're in those team fights. And I think he's just an underrated hero of this team. You can always rely on Penguin.
What will Formal bring to this team? A better question would be, what will Formal not bring to this team? And I would struggle to answer that one as well, because Formal is a very talented individual who has that winning mentality.
Formal for me is a damage dealer, and he is always going to be a damage dealer who is positioning himself perfectly alongside teammates. The great thing about Formal is he always is in a position to create a 2v1, and if there's a 1v1 to be had, Formal will do damage and he will stay alive. He is a consistency factor, which maybe some people will argue that Optic were missing with Pistola. Now, Pistola was a player who could win you games single-handedly at times by making a play. But, Optic across a series, you're looking for someone who's going to give those consistent numbers. That is something that Formal can do.
So when I think about Formal's attributes and just what he's known for in this game, one thing that people always refer to first is his damage output, his ability to put in just as much damage as possible into the enemy team. But I think in tangent with that, the number one thing that Formal brings to this team is that he alleviates the pressure off Lucid. Before, he had to do so much for his team just for games to even get a little bit close. With his extra damage output and slaying capabilities, it allows Lucid to kind of relax, take a step back, and kind of focusing more on decision making rather than slaying all the time. And I think that's why the team is working so well, because Lucid doesn't have to do everything anymore.
He will not accept second place. He will not say, good tournament guys, we got top 2, but we just missed out on first. It'll be like, why aren't we winning? What can we do to win? Where do we need to go if we are going to win this series or this tournament? And I think with that winner's mentality and someone who's experienced tournament victories a lot, this Optic roster is so scary.
He also brings a winning mentality that I don't think you can teach. I think you just have to win events to know what it takes to win events. And I think there's players on that Optic lineup who still need that. APG's been there, he's done that. But I feel like with Trippy and Saiyan, there is still that, that hump to cross, so to speak, when it comes to the big tournament on the main stage. Even though they've played incredibly well, and I've been amazingly impressed by them, there's just something intangible about what Formal brings in those situations where you need ice, you need to clutch up, that cannot be replicated by many players in the world. I think Formal is one of those players who can maybe push them over that hump. How important is it for teams to make tough and unpopular calls like dropping Ola? Is a tough question to answer, right? He's always going to be a fan favorite, Pistola, and understandably so. The history of the guy, he still was playing unbelievably, I must say, on that Optic lineup as well. this is the thing, right? If you're a player and you're competing and you're getting second places aren't good enough for the players that are on Optic, and they want to get first place, and they saw the opportunity to make a change. They were coming up short. Raleigh was very disappointing. Second place in Anaheim was an improvement, but obviously they made the decision, and a business decision, that that team was not going to be able to beat Cloud9.
You know, I think it's no secret that Ola wasn't up to par. Yes, he was doing good most of the tournament back in Anaheim, but when it came to that first place position, he wasn't doing what he had to do against Cloud9, and the team recognized that. So I think, you know, regardless of the unpopular decision, like Ogre 2 got dropped, the team knew what they had to do, and they did it,
So Optic were always going to be faced with a very tough call of, do we drop Pistola? Do we drop APG? I think Trippy and Lucid were always safe because they were this kind of duo that were amazing on Optic, and they were looking so mechanically gifted. I spoke to APG when I was out in Texas, and he said during that whole time he received a phone call and he said, this is it. This is the call. They're dropping me and I'm gone. That's how close it could have been, he thinks, to it being him rather than Pistola. I don't know if that's necessarily true just from what I had seen of that team. I think Pistola offers a very different playstyle.
It is a risk to do because obviously there's going to be people who are looking at it and going, we love Pistola, we want to see Pistola, it wasn't Pistola's fault. And it wasn't maybe Pistola's fault, but in Formal we bring in a popular guy anyway, which I think is a great thing for the Optic players because it takes that stress off. But it's something that all teams have to do if they want to be the best, and that is make the tough decisions.
The way that Pistola plays, everyone knows, you know, he's the wizard, he's sneaky, he likes to be bottom middle, and he's amazing at finishing off these kills when it's being assisted from the team, but I don't think Optic necessarily needed that. They needed a leader, they needed someone who was going to make those calls, those tough decisions, and that's why Formal has come in, who I really think is going to offer something different. It's never easy and fun to make decisions like that, especially with a liked personality like Pistola, but I'm sure he'll land on his feet, and I don't think it'll be the last we see of the wizard himself.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're my #1 team to take down Cloud9 at this event. They are very obviously the best team online right now, but we're gonna have to see when it comes to LAN how that translates, especially since they're all in Texas.
We've seen it in online tournaments already, and scrim results also heavily suggest that Optic are the best team coming into this tournament. But I will put an asterisk next to that because online is online, right? There's always going to be that element of who is pinging better to the server, and a lot of the Optic players have amazing connections, and they live in one of the best places in the world. You never really know what's going to happen when it comes to LAN.
Yes, without a doubt. I think they do. Will they do it right now? I'm not so sure. I still think the Cloud9 are the undoubted favorites, but there's a chemistry in this team now where it seems like everyone's starting to play for each other. And I think that, like I mentioned with what Formal brings to the team, it might take a LAN event for him to kind of find the flow on LAN with this team as well, because online's very different, as we all know, to a live competition. They could beat Cloud9. I just don't think it will be right now.
But certainly from what we've seen online and the way that Optic are playing and the amount of hours they're putting in, yes, they could beat Cloud9. I'm going to say it. I think they will beat Cloud9.
All right, let's talk about Fnatic. How impressed was I with their maiden LAN, considering they pushed Cloud9 to a game 5? Now, that series in the green room backstage, we were all glued to the screen. We were like, what is going on here? Like, these guys are playing crazy good. They're playing insane.
I loved watching Fnatic. Fnatic organization I've always had a soft spot for, mainly because there's been a lot of European teams in the history of Fnatic Halo.
Envor was amazing, by the way. I think his consistency was one of the things that really did shine for them.
Oh yeah, I was super impressed by Fnatic at Anaheim. I was actually one of the few people praising them beforehand, saying like, guys, like, watch out. These guys are a lot better on LAN. Like, you have no idea.
I think they've shown that they can hit a level maybe they didn't realize they could hit themselves, and I think everybody is excited to watch Fnatic play. They're one of those teams who's kind of a little bit all over the place.
Did I think they're going to take Cloud9 to game 5? No. But, you know, I think it goes to show that even though they're kind of underperforming right now online, that's going to change when it comes to LAN. So by no means do I think that's a honeymoon phase. I think they have the capability of pulling up some upsets when it comes to KC.
I think that they had a really good first LAN, but they need to build from that now. And they need to maybe actually get that upset, win that game 5 rather than lose it.
Yeah, no, Sentinels should not be happy. I know they're not happy just from the things I've seen in streams. They want first place, plain and simple. That's the team that they used to be, and that's the team they could be now. And they know they can do it, so getting 4th place again with their full roster, no, they're not happy with that at all.
Even though, you know, Royal 2 was away for Rally and, you know, he's coming back into Anaheim. They were so far behind when it comes to practice, even though they tried to scrim with Royal 2 a little bit when they were playing with Formal. You expect them to be top 2. They expect to be winning, they're a championship winning team, like a multi-championship winning team.
You can ask any of them about it. They want to win, they want to come first place, they do not care. And even though you might hear them in interviews, you know, Snakebite's are very good at being kind of political with things, if you know what I mean. It's like he's always going to be, you know, happy for the competition, saying they weren't prepared, whatever it might be. They're not happy unless they're winning first place.
They want to be number 1. So with them performing the way they are, like, sure, they could be shrugging it off and saying, oh, well, you know, we're a little bit under-practiced. We'll get them next time. Well, when is that next time going to be? Because if it's not at Kansas City, then there's going to be a lot of questions asked, not just by fans, but by the Sentinels roster themselves.
Yeah, so I think this might not be the most positive of answers, but I think it's pretty true. I think a lot of what holds Sentinels back is their sentiment towards this game. We live in a different era now where you can't just like drop the game and just do something else. You're binded by your contract to play for at least a year. And if you don't love what you do, and this really just goes for life in general, you're never going to reach that peak potential. And I think that's what you see when you see some of the players on Sentinels. On the contrary, when you look at a player like Spartan, for instance, he loves the game and he's doing so good. He's one of the best slayers in the game right now.
What do I think is stopping Sentinels from being where they want to be is I think Halo Infinite is fundamentally a very different game to Halo 5.
One player who needs to improve a little bit is Lethal. And I don't mean that in a way where I don't think Lethal is making good plays. I don't mean in that in the way that I think that Lethal isn't the player that he was. I think that Lethal's just had a couple of shaky events, and that can happen to anyone. I mean, Lethal, one of the greatest Halo players of all time. I think he just proves to everyone that sometimes with a new game, it takes a little bit of time for players to work it out. I hate to solo out one player because there's so much more that goes into someone's numbers than just their performance, right? It could be, you know, he's getting sold out, whatever it might be. It can be all of these things.
Yeah, okay, individually, some of them can go toe-to-toe with any of those players from Cloud9 and Optic on their best day, but it has to be every day. It can't just be your best day. And I just think that Sentinels lack that consistency a little bit, and maybe Halo Infinite isn't kind of playing how they expected it to. If they don't get minimum top 2 at KC, then watch this space. I'm expecting changes to happen.
People forget very quickly, have very short-term memory when it comes to Halo competition. It's all about what happened last time, right? We have to remember that before the whole Royal 2 thing happened, and, you know, we've talked about that to death at this point, this was the team who was winning things. This was the team who won the HCS Open. This is the team that won an esports arena tournament, and this is a team who has shown that they can beat anyone. So I think it's just consistency and hard work. Those things start to go together and start to gel, then Sentinels will be back at the top. I have no doubt about it.
That's a difficult question, because I've just said that Sentinel shouldn't be happy with how they performed at Anaheim. But EUnited, I would say, probably will be happy with top 3 because they were able to outplace Sentinels. But at the same time, every player wants to win. You dream of winning that title, you dream of lifting that trophy, you dream of that moment on main stage when you get that final kill and you beat that team.
I think EUnited will be happy with a top 3 at Anaheim, but it would have been the minimum they would have expected after a second place back in Raleigh.
Yeah, top 3 is pretty damn good. I think every team obviously wants to get first, but for what people were expecting them to do, especially after Raleigh, I'd say top 3 is a success for them and kind of proving to everyone that they can really compete with the best.
I think every single tournament they're going to want to get into that grand final and prove that maybe they are the team to beat Cloud9, because recently they played in scrims and I noticed that, you know, Cloud9 was struggling a little bit against EUnited. EUnited seemed to be really up for that scrim. Obviously it's online, it's scrims, it's never as serious as a live tournament, and Cloud9 are a completely different beast when you get to the LAN environment.
You know, when you look at Optic's situation, I think they went into Anaheim knowing that if they don't perform, that there needs to be a change. Whereas with EUnited, they went in to prove a point. And I think that top 3 for them was good enough to justify that roster.
No, I don't think so. I think that I've always been a big advocate of not making changes unless they are absolutely necessary. And I wouldn't say there was anything EUnited did wrong that screamed to me, that player needs to leave, they need to make changes. EUnited though, I think that they've got an amazing core 4. They all seem to get along really well, and in-game, they've been amazing.
I don't believe that EUnited needed to make a change. I think that their chemistry is there as a team. I think they're still working through a few things. I think they're still working incredibly hard to be that best team. I think for EUnited, a change only comes if you fall out of that top 3. For me, they haven't done that yet, and they've shown a level of consistency that every single team in the Halo Championship Series would aspire to have.
So FaZe harbors some of the best talent in the league right now. In terms of potential, I think players like Falcated and Bound can compete with the very best. I think what they suffer, and it's still what they have suffered since the very beginning, is their communication, and that includes any badly executed plays, like any immature moves. And for some reason, as a team, they haven't really just sat down and figured out why they have these issues. I do think it'll be the bane of their success.
I think what's evident is that FaZe are a LAN team, and that happens. Some teams are very good online, and then they get better on LAN, or sometimes teams are very bad online, and they get better on LAN. I know certainly they've recently been scrimming a lot more, and they've really been dedicating their time and working on their craft. So I think we'll see a different FaZe clan at this event. And okay, Anaheim, it wasn't great for them, but it could have really easily gone very different, and they could have ended up in the top 4 if they had had just a slightly better day.
FaZe are inconsistent online because during the Pro Series, you know, I hate to talk about online and what it is, but everybody knows that certain players are further away from servers than others, and it can get frustrating, and it can tilt you when it's on LAN. It's a different environment. I think Snipedown was the one of those players who suffered. To be honest.
So they have been a little bit lackluster since Anaheim, but one thing that I know is absolutely true with every tournament is that you could never predict how a team does. Look at FaZe before Raleigh and look how they performed at the event. So going into this event, yes, FaZe has some question marks, but they could very well go on a run.
There's been a lot of focus and highlights on some of the players, like Boo. Was he underperforming? I want to see more from Bound. I think that Bound has so much to offer, and he was that kind of new kid on the block. And everyone was saying he was going to be the next big thing. Well, we need a tournament from him to show us that he is that next big thing.
When it gets to LAN, you can see the difference, right? When you get to LAN, you're locked in, you're focused, and they have the experience to play on the main stage, which other teams do not. So I think that's just the inconsistency of online, not so much the inconsistency of FaZe. I don't think they got too much to worry about.
They will not want top 8, right? That's not good enough for them as players, nor the organization. And that's what's so difficult. You've got so many orgs now who are expecting minimum top 3, and FaZe need to be one of those as well.
SSG have made a lot of team changes, and they are consistently making team changes. They kind of took a little bit of a gamble with some younger players on that roster, and you can't expect a younger player who doesn't have experience at the top level to perform at their first event.
Well, firstly, what went wrong for SSG at Anaheim? Absolutely everything. They were abysmal. They know it. We know it. Everyone else knew it. And they needed to do something different. They needed to go back to the drawing board, which in fairness, they have done. They've made those changes. You know, there's players on this team like Tylenol as well who aren't experienced. You know, Raleigh was their first ever LAN event. And even though he is a player now who people look at as a more experienced player on this roster, for example, still really inexperienced player.
Yeah, SSG at Anaheim, I think they just made a bad team change. I think they really didn't hit their stride in terms of how to work as a team. And you saw that at Anaheim. I don't think they won a single game. And right now, I think they made a good team switch. I think Collect and Rami, Collect especially, is one of the best rising talents in the league. They haven't been looking so great as of recently, but you never know what's going to happen.
Their teamwork was lacking because it was probably the team who had the least practice out of everyone there. So all these team changes, all these roster changes, players with inexperience is always going to cause inconsistency for a team.
Unfortunately for SSG, didn't really work. And, you know, they went back to the drawing board. They made some changes, and I think we'll see a far better performance from SSG at this tournament. But to be honest, it couldn't get any worse, really, could it? If you haven't been paying attention to the EU scene, where have you been? I'm very offended. But Ascend are a roster of 3 incredible French players, plus incredible English player, Snipe Drone, who is the token French player on that team, it would seem. But he doesn't know any French, by the way.
You've got Legend, you've got Seeker, you've got Shady, and you've got Snipe Drone, who's a name that you might know. Now, the other 3 players, French players, started playing together sort of latter end of Halo 5 and won everything. Just simply won everything that there was to win. Coming into Halo Infinite, there was a lot of talk about were they going to be at the level of maybe some of the players on the Na'Vi roster. The answer is yes. Online, at least, they have won absolutely everything. They are undefeated in Europe as a team, which is a ridiculous record, even though it's online. And again, like going back to what I was saying earlier, I always value a LAN result over an online one. I think that this team is a dangerous team, arguably one of the best teams we've seen in Europe for some time.
They haven't lost a tournament in years. We're spamming back to Halo 5 now. They have dominated for so long, and whilst the 4th player has changed here or there, it's been that same core 3 French players. Snipe Drone is the latest addition to it, and you know, previously you've had Jimbo. SLG was also on that team for the brief stint as well when they were dominating Halo 5. However, when we saw them at Rally, they got outplaced by Na'Vi. And I think that would have hurt because they've been this best European team, but they weren't able to show it in terms of placement. But would they have beaten Na'Vi if they've played one another? That's a different question, because they've beaten Na'Vi in every online tournament. But online is not LAN.
Ascend is amazing at this game. Shady and Legend are 2 of my favorite players currently. And if you see the way this team plays, they play so fast. I actually refer back to one of my friends, Tiberius Oddly. What he said is that Ascend is basically the EU version of Pioneers. They've learned to play at a pace that really the rest of the competition for the EU scene hasn't quite figured out yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fare up this time since their debut back at Raleigh.
And I think that what makes them so dominant is the speed of which they play. It is closer to an American team in terms of the style of which they play. They are always rotating. But essentially, Ascend, very quick, fast-paced team. Individual skill is amazing, and their ability to rotate is also incredible, which is very important in a lot of the game types in Halo Infinite.
When you're asking about why they're so dominant, it seems they have this natural teamwork and chemistry that works so well. You have Shady, who's the aggressor. He's always up in your face. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of Renegade in the way he plays. And then off the back of that, you've got Snipe Drone, who is always looking at him, dealing huge amounts of damage, which allows Shady to put off these plays. And then Legend and Seeker are kind of the backbone. They make so few bad decisions in game. They're always there to help each other. They're always there to clutch up, and they play at a pace which other teams in Europe have struggled to deal with. And I think they play at a pace which is going to catch some NA teams off guard as well. We saw that back in Raleigh, right? They were one of the only teams to take games off of Cloud9. I mean, your first ever LAN event for 3 of those players, I think that says a lot. So it's the speed at which they play out which is so impressive, and obviously they're like nasty with their shots as well.
Top 4 is possible. I'd say right now that anything below top 2 is up for grabs. I think there is a list of teams below Optic and Cloud9 that could take any of those spots. So there is a world out there where Ascend gets top 4 or greater.
So European Halo's best placement was top 6, with the likes of Jimbo, Kimbo, Respectful, and Mose. And that was an amazing roster, and they had such a good run. But their online performances and their record doesn't even compare to what Ascend have achieved. So you'd expect Ascend to at least be able to match that. But at the same time, North America's been improving as well. And the North American top 6, let alone actually the top 8, is stacked. It is not going to be easy for Ascend to even break into top 8, top 6, let alone think about top 4.
This team does have what it takes to place top 4, but again, I don't think it's going to be now. I think it's going to take a couple more events because they are inexperienced as a LAN team. Now, I know they're going out for a pre-LAN. They're going out early for KC, which shows, again, the dedication and the effort these guys want to put in. But now, no, they don't have the experience, you know, in a crunch game 5, whatever it might be, against, you know, a FaZe roster, a Cloud9, whatever it might be, right? If they get them to a game 5, it's a lot to ask of a team who is so inexperienced. They do have the talent, they do have the teamwork, without doubt, in my opinion, to really push one of those top 4 teams in a series. But for now, I don't see it happening. I would love to see it happening because I'm an EU fanboy, but for now, they need more experience in those kind of situations.
I would like to think they could get top 6. Boy, would it be tough, but I think they've got what it takes to break in a little bit further. It's just a matter of how they play on the day.
It's going to be Cloud9.
Off the game.
Cloud9.
And that just about does it for today's video. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to take Kansas City. I want to give a massive thank you to my incredible guests, that's DeviousGruntAlliance, Onset and Dan Gaskin. This show would not be possible without you, and it's greatly appreciated for you coming on the show. And I also want to give a massive thank you to you, the viewer, for watching and making it this far through the video. If you're new around here, then please consider liking, and if you enjoy HCS content and want to see more videos like this, then also please consider subscribing. I've been Proto, thanks for watching, and enjoy the tournament.